Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
Okay, so sorry for being a little late. We're having a show ahead of us, so that's the reason. So bear with us. And now today we're gonna bring you some very, very simply bizarre exchange, right?
Yeah, and everybody probably remember back in March there was a kind of heated exchange between Senator Marsha Blackburn with Ketanji Jackson, right, at the Supreme Court confirmation hearing. And then yesterday, similar thing happened.
And what is that? So, but before we're heading over there, let's look at two, big news, top news of today. Okay, first, consumer prices soared 9.1% compared to 1 year later, according to the Labor Department, and this is the biggest yearly increase since 1981. So if you still remember, last month's number showed 8.6%. That already shattered the record in 40 years. And economics has estimated the CPI will rise at an annual rate of 8.8%. Now, the real number even break that.
Right.
Okay, it reached 9.1%.
Yeah, so it's the 9.1% on a monthly basis. Prices has jumped 1% from April to May. Prices rose 1.3% from May to June. And some other numbers, the core consumer price, excluding food and energy, rose by 5.9%. The real average hourly earning fell 3.6% over the past year, and making the 15th month in a row in which inflation has outpaced wages.
Yeah, the number all looked really, really bad. And the increases were also broad-based, okay? Rent, new and used vehicles, and car insurance and medical care, and so on, all rose in June. And the cost of necessity in particular rising much faster than the average incomes, okay? And the low-income people, like Black and Hispanic Americans, has been hit especially hard. And among them, let's look at a bit of detail, okay? First, the grocery prices jumped to 12.2% compared to 1 year ago. And then this is the steepest such climb since 1979. And the rent has risen 5.8%, the most since 1984. And the new car prices has increased 11.4%, okay, and from 1 year ago. And then the airline fares are up 34% from 1 year earlier.
Yeah, in talking about airline fares increase, also people find that a lot of the flights being canceled, and that's another issue, right? And so gas price, for example, have fallen from the eye-watering $5 a gallon reached in mid-June to now average of $4.63 nationwide Wednesday, which is still far higher than a year ago, but a drop that could help slowing inflation for June and possibly August.
And then this is what the White House has been insisting, saying that things are going for the better and the number is outdated. However, the rising price has caused a sharp drop in the confidence in the consumers. So 40% of the U.S. adults now say that tackling inflation shall be the top government priority this year in the June AP NOC poll, up from just 14% in last December.
Yeah, so what's the White House's response to that? Vice President Harris said this latest inflation figure do not reflect drop in gas price. She said that today. She said while more work needs to be done, the figures do not fully reflect the recent drop in gas price. That's a quote. And adding that the national average price drop is around 40 cents a gallon. I'm not sure how much they can be counted in as the decrease of the inflation. Mm-hmm. And she also said that fighting inflation remains the administration's top economic priority, and points to steps that have been taken to lower costs for Americans, which includes releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum reserve, in reducing high-speed internet bills, and some tax cuts.
Yeah, and many people call this inflation Bidenflation, while the White House called this the Putinflation. So what is it? Okay, and is really the inflation caused by the Russian-Ukrainian war? Well, this has been the 13th straight month of inflation running higher than 5%. And as we all recall, the Russian-Ukrainian war happened only 5 months ago. And inflation began to accelerate last March and hasn't stopped since then. So basically, what are the reasons? Okay, let me just share with you my point of view. Three main reasons. The first is the current administration's energy policy. Basically, they don't like fossil fuel, and the fossil fuel is still driving our economy by 70 to 80%. So when they have put a suppressive policy on fossil fuel, that's going to hurt the energy that drive the entire economy. This is the first thing. The second, well, given the supply chain disruption has been happening due to the COVID lockdown in Shanghai or in China and elsewhere, things are not moving fast enough. And the third one is too much fiat money out there. And the Biden administration pushed through billions of dollars of deficit spending in the American Rescue Plan, which was passed last year. So simply too much money out there, and the supply cannot meet the demand, and also the very strict energy policy on fossil fuel. And then while the second one, you just have to wait for it to resolve itself, which is the supply chain disruption. The first one, energy policy and too much fiat money out there seems to be fixable, okay? And the central bank actually now expect to raise its key short-term rate later this month by hefty, actually 0.75 of a point. This is yesterday. Okay, now 80% of economists now have a consensus that they're going to raise it by 1%, 1 full percentage point. So what do you think? Share with you your point of view. This is what I see. Indeed, to me, this is so clear and so common sense. And three reasons: energy policy and the supply chain problem and the too much money out there. And two of them are fixable. One of them you have to wait. But however, now the Fed is saying that they're going to raise the interest rate in unprecedented way in the last 20 years. Okay, so it's just like when you don't have enough gas to run your car, you don't go look for the gas. You say, let's don't drive. Essentially, that's how I see it. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think what I see makes sense? Just share with us your point of view. Another thing I just want to report to you that actually Wall Street Journal, okay, the editorial board published opinion yesterday. They have some interesting point of view I want to share with you. Okay, first let's talk about that there's a think tank called the Committee to Unleash American Prosperity. Okay, it was founded by Stephen Moore, if you remember. President Trump liked him a lot, almost appointing him to the governor of the Federal Reserve, and also by Larry Kudlow and then Steve Forbes, okay, in 1915. All right, and then Stephen Moore was also the chief economist of the Heritage Foundation. Okay, and then this Wall Street Journal editorial board's opinion said this. Okay, two people. One is Stephen Moore, and another is a White House journalist. Okay, by Fox Radio. His name is John Decker. They researched 84 Biden administration high-level executives who manage the economy. All right, 68 of them. They studied all their resume and drew the following conclusion. So who are those officials? First, President Biden. Then the Treasurer Minister Yellen, right, Janet Yellen, and then all the special assistants on the economy. Okay, their conclusion is this: average business experience of Biden appointees is only 2.4 years. All right, and then what's more, shocking is that out of the 68 people, 62% has virtually no business experience.
Wow, yeah, more than half.
Yeah, and comparatively, the average Trump cabinet officials has 13 years experience in the private economy. All right, and counting President Biden and then his business experience, he only had 5 business experience out of his 58-year career.
5 years out of 58.
Yeah, and then that experience was in the venture capital and investing. All right, but there are people who does have experience, like Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Okay, he's she is a successful venture capitalist before entering government. And Interior Secretary Bob Hernandez, he operates in the run operation at a New Mexico tribal casino. But most of other people, they have very little experience. Okay, and then so the opinion said, Wall Street Journal editorial board opinion said it's fair to wonder if the Biden policies and their results reflect the lack of a basic understanding of how businesses work. What do you think? And then one example is the Labor Department's quest to classify millions of contractors as employees, despite evidence that many workers prefer independent status. This just happened actually a few months ago. Okay, for the truck driver,
right.
they believe W-2 employee has higher status. They force them to the employers take them as employees instead of as contractors. But they forgot the truck driver doesn't like it. Once that happened, they cannot find other work to do. So that aggravated the problem of the supply chain issue, basically transporting goods from like Los Angeles port to various destinations in the United States. So that's one example. And then among the Biden administration, the Health and the Human Service Secretary Xavier, right, the Xavier Becerra from California, he has no experience in healthcare, while Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has little experience in supply chain of America's vast transportation network. So our transportation secretary doesn't quite understand what is transportation. And so this is the situation. Okay, and a Deputy Treasury Secretary and Adiemo has spent entire life in politics and government, nothing to do with the finance or economy, and that's our Deputy Treasury Secretary. So basically, the conclusion is this. It is not a virtue when the modern government, basically U.S., has so much power to regulate and punish private business. Presidents are free to appoint whoever they wish, but the result of business ignorance in this administration are speaking for themselves. What do you think? Do you agree? That's quite a bit of research, right? They put into finding out that the 6 state resumes, probably more than 6 state resumes, but their research shows that our administration at this time have a very poor, private business experience. That probably explains that what we're going through, and hope President Biden would hear this and understand what he's lacking, what his team is lacking. All right, let's move on to the next topic.
Okay. So yesterday, on July 12th, Senate Judiciary Committee had a hearing to address on the abortion. It's called Abortion Access and the Law, which to examine the legal concerns after the Supreme Court overturned the Roe v. Wade decision. So Missouri Senator Josh Hawley was actually accused of being transphobic and is responsible for encouraging violence against transgender. And you wonder how come, right? So he was accused by a UC Berkeley law professor. Okay, she comes from California. So let's just, without further ado, let's take a listen to this kind of heated exchange, and then you can kind of decide
for yourself. But just for me, give you a little what's that called, a spoiler. It's very bizarre. Okay, it's a bizarre exchange. Let's hear it to see how you feel about it. Okay, Tony, let's just play the exchange.
Yeah.
Z1. let's judge it ourselves.
Yeah, and
what kind of debate is that?
People remember in March there was a kind of bizarre exchange between Senator Marsha Blackburn with Judge Jackson, right? And just for defining what's a woman. And then yesterday, Senator Josh Hawley asked this law professor to define what's who can have a baby.
Yeah. And these days, there's enough argument about how to call a mother, right?
Right.
It's called a birthing parent. It's wrong to call it a mother. Yeah. So we just enter an era where, the common sense thing become a very, very, difficult topic. Complicated and difficult topic. And to us, to me, actually, I do my Chinese show there, right? I call myself common sense, scholar. Yeah, indeed, that was well accepted because I think the common sense sometimes is the utmost truth. Okay, just go for the common sense. Should not be more complicated than that.
Yeah, but in those exchanges, the common sense is not working, and
Yeah, so basically, this hearing is happening at the Senate, and then let's see whether our DJ Tony can put this together. Okay, so it doesn't seem to be ready.
Okay, so maybe let's just kind of go through what was in the conversation. So Senator Josh Hawley asking Professor, her name again is, what's her name? Khiara Bridges. Mm-hmm. She's a law professor in UC Berkeley and also the director for the Reproductive Center, Reproductive Rights Center. So Senator Hawley asked, now Professor Bridges, you've said that for several times, used a phrase that I wanted to make sure I understand what you mean by it. So the professor referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So Josh Hawley asked her, would that be a woman? All right.
It seems to be a pretty straight question.
Right.
What about the answer?
Okay. So she answered, well, yes, they are women, but there are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy and the non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And she added, we can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
I don't know how you take it. It's like she answered something like she did not answer anything. Well, it's just like this or that. And
but she basically saying some men can also get pregnant. Mm-hmm. So then Senator Hawley continued to ask, so your view is that the core of this right, the abortion rights, then is about what, right? He wants to clarify.
Yeah.
And Professor Bridges...
Here comes the highlight.
Yeah. So the answer was, she said, I wanted to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Okay.
So Senator Hawley was like, wow, you are saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies? So what's the answer? By Bridges. She said, I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender people have attempted suicide. So how does that relate? Suicide versus someone questioning whether, besides women, other people can get pregnant.
Yeah.
So this back and forth exchange lasted less than 2 minutes, but covered a lot of things. And then Hawley, he just said, oh, so is that how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you, or are they also treated like this? where they are told they are opening up people to violence by being questioned.
Okay, so if Tony can get it ready, we can still replay it again so that you capture it yourself. This okay, doesn't, yeah, we run into some issue here, so let's continue. Yeah.
Okay, then Bridges responded, we have a good time in my class. You should join. You would learn a lot. And Senator Hawley said, I bet. I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just by this exchange. Extraordinary.
Yeah, so it's just, we don't have the whole context here, okay? The whole conversation here, the conversation is very illustrative by itself. Okay, so basically just, so whether, who can get it pregnant? And then once as Senator Hawley was asking, she said, you're transphobia. Transphobic.
And you're responsible for the violence against the transgenders, which means they get them suicide.
Yeah, 1 in 5 would suicide. But there's enough statistics about phenomenon like that, but there's no scientific findings because of other people think, and how their opinion caused the death. Okay, so however, she just linked them together.
Right.
She become very whenever there's any disagreement, she just attack. The attack is very out of blue. Like
the question, like the cause and the cause and the reasoning, just the cause and the result, just it kind of jumps, right? And then actually in her opening, this professor also claimed that overturning Roe v. Wade would lead to racial injury. And why is that, you may ask, right? So her logic is that because black people's abortion rate is 3 to 5 times higher than white people, which is directly result of higher unintended pregnancy, which in turn is due to a higher rate of poverty among black people, which is due to systematic racism. Can you make sense out of it? The higher rate of abortion by black people is due to higher unintended pregnancy. That makes sense, maybe, right? But then she said that this the high rate of unintended pregnancy is due to a higher rate of poverty among black people. What's the whys and the and then she said and this is due to the systematic racism that the black people are systematically in poverty and not allowed to live in dignity without the food and the necessities. How does that come together? It's just she tried to put it like in a very logical way, but it's hard for people to understand.
If you are good, you're a very logical person, you open it up. You don't see their logic. Just this is similar to like in other field, like Philadelphia. What happened in Philadelphia? The social activists, they're trying to stop the police of the Philadelphia to do this stop and frisk practice because they feel that the practice needs to be stopped because of blacks and Hispanics are stopped more often than the other groups. Okay, but for the critics, the racial imbalance in stops is evidence of they see that it's evidence of racial bias rather than a reflection of higher violent crime rates among blacks and Hispanics versus other racial and ethnic groups. Okay, like men are also stopped more often than women, right? Is that evidence of a sexism? And then in big cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, St. Louis, and Baltimore, and the violent crime is highly concentrated, not only among certain groups, but also geographically. And you can call that another, discrimination in terms of city.
Well, including like in the sports, in athleticism, right? There are more black athletes than white, and very few Asians. Is that racism?
So we should raise hell there. We don't, because we see black people play basketball much better than we do. We just stay off and watch the great game. And then why don't they raise hell there? So, this is very, very simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
Very simple stuff in this country become very, very complicated. and people are arguing at the hall of the floor of the Senate, of the U.S. Senate. Who has the job of just running the whole country. They argue whether men can pregnant or women can pregnant.
And if you don't agree with that, some men can also get pregnant. You are,
transphobic
phobic and agitating the violence. Wow. So, Luis, you said I found it very entertaining. And Larry said Hawley is our bulldog from Missouri. So Larry, you from Missouri? Okay. And Jungle Jargon said, help me wait for justice to be carried out.
In this country, some just outrageously ridiculous matter, just not worth even debating, become a debating item. But to us, we understand that part. Okay. In China back then, it was just like that. Okay, those in Chinese we call this 歪理邪说, right? Just those absurd theory was raised, and pretend they are the most righteous theory, and you cannot just protest it, you cannot criticize it. In Chinese culture, there's this term called 指鹿为马, right? The emperor will just pull a deer to the court, and saying that. How do you think of this horse? And everybody has to say, wow, this is a great horse. Nobody dare to say, sir, your honor, your majesty, this is a deer. Because that's the emperor's way to test people's loyalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing is in the Cultural Revolution is that people, if you raise different opinion, you will be, targeted just fiercely, and they will brand you as anti-revolutionary, and
you hold different opinion, they just attack you. Ferociously. And then, of course, the purpose is not based on reasoning, it's not based on logic, it's not based on rationality, it's based on just subdue you. So the same trick is being played in this country,
And what's the way to deal with that?
I just called it out. So this is ridiculous. Just dare to say this is ridiculous. Just say the common sense. Insist on the common sense. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, they will
don't be scared into silence.
Don't be bullied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you get bullied, they will just you give them 1 inch, they will move forward a foot, right? That's the way saying in Chinese.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also another very ridiculous thing happening in Bay Area right now, which is earlier this month, right after the Independence Day, in Vacaville, which is near Sacramento. People found, people who are driving SUV, they found a leaflet on their windshield over the night.
Okay.
Coupling with the tires got flattened, deflated. Okay. So what's happening is that those climate activist group, they just that's what they did, and they're saying, on the leaflet is saying, attention, you gas guzzler kills. We have deflated one or more of your tires. You will be angry, but don't take it personally. It's not you. It's your car. Okay, and it's saying, we did this because driving around urban areas in your massive vehicle has huge consequences for others. We are taking actions into our own hands because our government and politicians won't do that. So that's those, far left climate activists are doing. Not only in California, they actually have been doing that in Chicago, New York City, and Pennsylvania. So if you live in those areas, I don't know if it happened to you or your friends or people around you, but this is how those far left people logic. Yeah, it's their logic. Okay, you're driving a big car, then you just have to be destroyed.
Yeah, it's fine for them to have their opinion, no matter how absurd it is. They have their freedom of speech. But they cannot just force it upon other people. right? This is a coercion. This is not freedom of speech. This is not liberty. This is coercion. That's the essential difference from the liberty that this country treasure and protect, and from the coercion, which is actually another form of tyranny. And then we should not have that. Should never have that. We should, whenever we run into things like this, I think we should really speak very, very loudly against that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Luis is asking any updates on the Chinese banks.
Yeah, the Chinese bank. Yeah. Actually, I think I have to report you next, another time. Yeah, so yesterday I didn't kept it up, but basically they are
saying the banking oversight organizations saying that they will, starting this Friday, they will just give some fundings to the rural banks, so that they can just gradually give some money out, so people can withdraw some of their funds. So, and the people who can get some funding is they have to, their savings account needs to be less than 50,000 Chinese dollars. So people who only have less than $50,000 can get some of the fundings.
Yeah, it's actually it's RMB, it's China dollar.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to divide that by 6. So they gave each person like $8,000. Okay, as a way to have them, just stop speaking out. Okay,
yeah. So that's what's the most recent development.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really solve like the basic problem over there.
Yeah, and in the meantime, there's an attorney that there was a certain depositors, and then from another province called Zhejiang. Okay, they were, how to say, they issued a warrant against them and arrest them, and so this has been happening. This is announced by a law company. Okay, 金恒律师事务所，金恒 attorney firm of the Zhejiang, and then they said that the Henan province authority has been issuing warrant and chase after those depositors who post information online. Okay, and they all got red code with their, how to say, their health code, so they cannot travel, cannot go anywhere, because now they become COVID virus carrier. Well, what really happens is they post things that to protest the government's action or inaction against such corruption.
Yeah, so, thank you, Larry, for letting us know. Yes, you are in Missouri. We have also another viewer here, Jungle Dragon, also in Missouri. Wow. So how do you think of Senator Josh Hawley? And so on Safe Chat, we have Michael saying some women that think they are men think they can get pregnant because they have ovaries, but then they are not really men, they are really still female. Yeah, and Louis said Americans need to pay attention. What we see in China and other countries can very easily happen here. Indeed, that's why we always would like to, just share with you the information from China, because indeed things could just happen here, and some things are already happening here, which is similar to what's happening in China. So that's great lessons and precautions that we can take from what's happening in China.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway that I wish that we all have today is the absurdity. Okay, the absurd things now becoming like a normal things that those liberal activists can just promote and just show off and insist upon.
Yeah, and in fact, on Twitter, if you just go check, and there are quite some people who, some of them are the students of that law professor Bridges. just applauding her, treating her as their hero. That's the reality right now. But I don't know how other people think, and are they just also agreeing with that, or just keeping silent? We don't know.
Yeah, but that does reflect the problem of our education, our young people, our kids who graduate out of high school and college and graduate school and so on and so forth, and then it become that way because our education did not do our job.
Well, like sharing on Safe Chat, saying the exact same thing.
Okay.
We need to stop sending our kids to college until they clean the colleges out of these radicals. I don't care if you've gotten your bachelor's or master's or your doctor's. 20 years ago, a child graduating from high school knew more than these kids graduating from it with any of these degrees. All you have to do is listen to these idiots, and you know that you don't have any kind of decent professors in schools. I don't know about any, but a lot of them probably.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, absurdity is absurdity, okay? In today's scenario, okay, they somehow got this to a step where absurdity can challenge common sense in the floor of our Senate. But doesn't mean it's right, and that doesn't mean it can last. So I think good people should push back and speak loud against that and insist on the common sense. And as each of us do that, the absurdity will return to its original form, which is absurdity. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and jungle jargon say, thank God for the Asians, considering that a lot of us are Eurasian anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and for staying with us tonight. I think as we reflect those things, I think it's all worthwhile. I think every day we read the news, we reflect upon it, we talk about it, we come through wiser and more vigilant and braver. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.